Were you a member of the NoZe Brotherhood at Baylor?
No, I can't talk about that, Fletch.
Okay. Folks, you need to look that up. NOZE, NoZe Brotherhood, capital N, capital Z.
There's a good Texas Monthly article from last year on them.
I'm going to have to read that because, yeah, they are so anyway, just amazing.
So now, please welcome the official, non-official, non-sponsor of the Savannah Bananas, but a big fan. Please welcome John Fletcher.
Well, thank you, Jesse Cole, owner of the Savannah Bananas, and welcome to this edition of 15 on Fridays with Fletch. Imagine excitedly telling your parents that you just got a job at a breakthrough company, and when they ask how much you're making, you tell them, well, I'm actually working for free. But then now you're telling them that you're working with this amazing entrepreneur named Mark Cuban. You're doing analytics for the company. You end up spearheading the company's IPO and you complete 3 acquisitions and you help with the operations of the Dallas Mavericks. You became one of the Mavs Maniacs, the male dancers. We got to hear about that. You're also an Emmy Award winning TV analyst for the Mavs. You host your own weekly podcast called Take That With You. And you write a column for D Magazine. And oh, yes, he's a stand up comedian. So get ready to laugh and learn from our friend, the one and the only BrianDameris. Brian, welcome and thanks for joining me today.
Fletch, you're the best. Happy to be here.
That's good. Well, take us through getting hired by Mark Cuban. What was that interview process like?
It was basically a lunch at Cafe Brazil, and he said, "You got the job." I was getting my MBA at SMU, and I was driving around on a Friday night, visited a friend in Fort Worth, and he was on KLIF. There was no 24-hour sports talk, and he was, of course, he wasn't the household name he is now, and he kept talking about this company called AudioNet at the time, and this station you listen to right now, KLIF, you can listen to all over the world. If you had a computer and the right software and all of this, and kept giving out his email address. And so I emailed him. I went to the computer center because I didn't even have a computer. I emailed him and went home, came back the next day. He had emailed me back, of course, like 5 minutes later. I told him I wanted looking for an internship. I was starting my second year of an MBA. You didn't have to pay me. I just wanted the opportunity. Thought that it was a legit company of quite a few people. And he asked me to email him a resume. And of course, I didn't know how to attach a file. So I faxed it to him. And he knew right then I would not be on the technology side of things, but more on the business side of things. And he wanted somebody to write some business plans and help raise some money. And so I met with him in Deep Ellum at Cafe Brazil. And I started working the very next day. I went to class from 6:30 to 9:30, 4 nights a week, and worked from 8 to 6 for about a year before I graduated.
So give us the play-by-play of telling your parents that you're working for free.
Yeah, they weren't, they didn't know, again, this is 1995, so they didn't know what the internet meant. My dad thought it was a company called the Internet. And when I would come home for holidays and what have you, down to Houston, he would have copies of the newspaper's employment section waiting for me because he wasn't sure this fly-by-night AudioNet Broadcast.com thing was going to work. So they didn't really get it until we finally made the front page of the Wall Street Journal.
At what point did they start paying you?
Soon after I started working, actually. It wasn't a lot, but it was about $18,000 a year that first year, which for MBA graduates, it was the low end of the spectrum.
So tell us your steps at broadcast.com along the way that led you to spearhead the company's IPO and to lead the 3 acquisitions.
Yeah, well, again, having an MBA, I started working on business plans, trying to raise some money. I had a financial background, so I was working on a lot of the financial projections, the numbers sitting across from heads of the companies that were going to invest in us to do those private placement rounds. I worked in the content side as well for a long time in sports, running our efforts in broadcasting elements of the Super Bowl and the Final Four. And some breaking news coverage, and then transferred over to more of a business development role when we were attempting to go public and the whole process of due diligence that goes along with that, the very complicated steps, obviously the the private conversations that need to happen because these things can't go public. And then July 17th, 1998, being on the floor of the NASDAQ when we broke the record for the biggest IPO ever on Wall Street, which obviously has then been broken. And then after we went public, we bought 3 companies in 9 months before we sold to Yahoo. So I was in charge of all the M&A and running those acquisitions. And then obviously everything that went involved into the eventual sale for $5.7 billion.
What can you tell us about the way that Mark Cuban thinks and about his decision-making process?
The number one adage that I always take away, there's a bunch of them, is you don't do things just because that's the way they've always been done. It's always about rethinking why you're doing something and zigging when other people are zagging. And so he was open to new ideas, but he also worked really hard, and you had to know your stuff. You couldn't really BS him. You had to know what you were talking about, and so you had to do your homework. But it was a true entrepreneurial mindset.
What do you admire most about him?
Yeah, loyalty. I've known him for over 30 years, and he's been someone that I can lean on, and I hopefully have been there for him along the way too in what I've done. But he's been a friend for a long time.
Quick thought about your degree from Baylor. Who inspired you at Baylor?
I would say my fraternity was called the Chamber. It was the Baylor Chamber of Commerce, and we took care of the Bear mascot. We ran homecoming, a lot of different events. It was a very hard, kind of service-oriented fraternity, and I think I just went to a reunion with some of my brothers over there just last week, and it was very good in terms of the growing experience for me at that point in my life.
Were you ever around FrankFallon, the voice of the Bears, very much?
I met him on a couple occasions. He actually spoke at an event that I ran for the Chamber during homecoming week. He was my featured speaker. I wanted him to be the speaker, and I got to meet him then.
I produced Baylor's radio broadcast for 8 years, working with Frank during his last 4 years, and of course John Morris and all those folks. Is amazing. Were you a member of the NoZe Brotherhood at Baylor?
No, I can't talk about that, Fletch.
Okay. Folks, you need to look that up. NoZe, NoZe Brotherhood, capital N, capital Z.
There's a good Texas Monthly article from last year on them.
I'm going to have to read that because, yeah, they are so anyway, just amazing.
Yeah, so moved to Dallas in 1993 and went to the MBA program. And, really, if you want to work in the business world in Dallas, there's just no better place than SMU. And so that really was a launching pad, not only for what I learned there, but just the relationships that I was able to build there.
Tell us about what you learned about business in your journey with the Dallas Mavericks, because you had several different positions with them. You had, by earning Mark's trust, you had a lot of platforms you could work within.
Yeah, it was the good news is because Mark owned the team, he kind of ran it like what I was used to running from Broadcast.com, which is even though I was in my early 30s when I started, and I was one of the first people to do analytics in the NBA back in 2002. I just wrote an article about this actually that dropped earlier in the week on dmagazine.com about the rookie of the race and how it's a microcosm of the battle for the minds of front office personnel in terms of analytics. And when I was doing analytics in 2002. And so I was able to bring a fresh approach to what had been kind of a business as usual sport for a long time. And I think what Mark brought was really modernizing the game. If you look at the owners of today, like Steve Ballmer, and some of the high-tech guys that have bought franchises, Mark was the first of that ilk. It used to be kind of an all family owned. We've done things the way we've always done things business. And so learning to apply what I had learned at broadcast.com now in the sports world and seeing that success.
Give an example of some of the analytics that you pulled and were able to apply. For example, the player that doesn't need to be on the court the last 60 seconds of a half or something like that. Tell us a couple of examples of analytics that you implemented.
Well, the good thing was DonNelson was the coach then, and he was his nickname was the mad scientist. He was able to try things, so he knew what the benefit of analytics were, what the limits of it were, and he invented small ball, which is the Steph Curry Golden State system that they ran to effectiveness, basically without a center to win their championships. We were doing that in 2002, 2003 with Eduardo Nahara as a small ball center, and the numbers were able to show that effectiveness. And Nelly was someone who was willing to embrace that and take a chance with it.
How about your player development role with the Mavs?
Yeah, that's another one where I learned from Donnie Nelson, who was my mentor there at the Mavericks, and really what I learned from him was the value of relationships, the value of um, meeting people along the way on the journey, the people who you see on the way up are the people you're going to see on the way down. And so whoever they are, you never know when. And it's happened in my life where 10, 20 years later, those people are in really high positions. But because we had good relationships where it wasn't a quid pro quo kind of transactional thing, but it was just something somewhere where you're nice to somebody and you keep that relationship going on a professional level. When they do rise to positions of important power in whatever field, you can still have those good relationships that can benefit you in the workplace because you took the time early on in their careers.
You use the word relationships a lot. Tell us about what that means and why it's so important to develop relationships and not just be transactional.
Yeah, because it's just a matter of authenticity, and in a business where, in any world, any field, where if you're coming across as someone who's only doing it because you're out to get something and it's for that specific deal, uh, when you are in a pinch and you need something or you need to reach out, those people aren't going to be there for you. So it's just a matter of in any facet of life, the connections you can build and the opportunities that come from just having dinner with somebody, having a drink. Doesn't have to be for any other reason other than, learning from them and vice versa, and the value that that brings you.
If you could do anything or change anything in your career over the past 15 years, what would you change or what would you do more of aside from winning more NBA championships?
That's an interesting question because I really feel at this point in my life, I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, what I'm, built for and made for. And so I'm happy that I reached this point. Would I've like to have reached it earlier in my career? Maybe, but I wouldn't change anything because it got to me to where I am. And I used kind of what I learned, a lot of what I speak about when you've heard me speak at different places around the region is my career journey and the lessons I've learned from that journey and how I've applied them now to my life and the work that I do. And so I needed each of those touch points, whether they were high points or low points, to get me through that and reach this point.
You really pushed for CooperFlagg to earn Rookie of the Year. Tell us about Cooper and his potential.
Well, Cooper, number one, is a great guy. On and off the court, he's a leader already at the ripe young age of 19. His cheat code really is his brain. You just teach him something once and he gets it. He won't make the same mistake twice. He's a franchise player that you build around. And he's very similar to Dirk in terms of his work ethic and his habits and how he approaches the game from a mental aspect, how he sees the game. And I spent a lot of time in my articles and my podcasts and on my broadcast really pushing the case for him to be Rookie of the Year, not because I work for the Mavericks, because I thought it was really the right thing. And so when he won the other day, I was really happy for him and proud of that achievement and just the beginning of what he can be. When they played the Lakers at the end of the season on national television and he went toe to toe with LeBron James, the first players over 40 and under 20 to score 20 points in a game, and they did that by halftime. I said it on the air. I said it was an honor to call the broadcast because I know what I'm seeing and how bright the future is.
Well, and of course, you were with the Mavs during the heyday of Dirk. And so compare Cooper to Dirk a little bit.
Well, I think it's unfair to make comparisons like that. Cooper's his own guy. But in terms of, like I was saying, the work ethic, the mentality, the quality of player and family, I think those sync a lot up with each other. But I'm excited to see how Cooper can develop as his own person.
Tell us about your role with the Mavs broadcast career.
Well, it started on the ticket as the post-game host. I did that for a dozen years, and then it went on to TV, pre and post-game show, which I have done now for 6 or 7 years. Um, and then went when D Magazine started sports vertical in 2020. I started writing for them. I write once a month for D Magazine on the Mavericks and other topics, and then 3, 4 years ago started as the full-time color analyst on the Mavs radio calls. And I'm the only analyst in the league that isn't a former player or coach. So I thank the organization for having faith in me to do that. So I specifically target, radio, TV, podcast writing. They all have different audiences. They all reach different people. Podcast is a younger demo. TV is an older demo. Radio people in their cars. Writing is pretty much anybody. Hardcore influencers. All the people in the media read that. So I took a real, specific approach to kind of hit that in each area.
Let's talk Shark Tank. You could speak for hours on this. What are some of the common misperceptions about the show?
Yeah, I worked for Mark Cuban his first couple of years on Shark Tank, on set and working with the organizations that would invest with him. And I think what people don't understand is the Sharks have no idea who's walking in the door. They don't have briefing books. They're not prepped ahead of time. It's literally blind. And what is recorded, what you see in a 15-minute, 13-minute chunk on the air, it takes an hour or more to go through, and it is edited down. So everything happens there during that time. So they film really long days and try to film as many as they can for the whole season during the summer months.
What's something positive that viewers are impressed with about the show?
What surprised me when I've been around Mark and people have approached him is that it's a family show. A lot of parents watch it with their kids to teach them entrepreneurship, to teach them sales, to teach them pitching during a high pressure environment, and the decision making that goes with taking a deal in real time.
What percent of the deals actually happen?
Maybe half or so. They're verbally agreed to. Excuse me.
Just try that again.
Yeah.
So
I would say maybe half or so. The deals are verbally agreed to, and then the guys like me go in and actually do some of the due diligence. And so sometimes what happens is the contestants seem to exaggerate how many sales they have, or things aren't as they seem in terms of what they've promised. They've overpromised and underdelivered on some stuff. So that's why those deals fall apart.
Well, and you got to visit with Mitch Allen during, I guess, that event in December in South Lake, who his Hire Santa was one of the recipients of the Sharks when Barbara gave him money. So it's probably pretty interesting to be around some Shark alumni every now and then.
They're all, you know what, they are all super nice. And every time I see Barbara or Robert, Damon, they're always, say hi, and they're smart people, but they're good people as well.
What are some of the most common mistakes that are made by contestants? You talked about not being fully forthcoming with some of the financials. What are some other mistakes?
I would say a couple things. One is having a concise, short pitch and story in a small amount of time to tell your story effectively. And the other is just the negotiation tactic of the deals, and maybe turning down some deals because you got a little greedy. Pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. Sometimes you need to take the deal, and they think, well, maybe if it airs on TV, I'll get a better option, and they should have just taken what they had.
How often do you see somebody go on Shark Tank with no intention at all of making a deal, but only to promote their product?
I think early on some of that happened. I don't know. Obviously, I haven't been involved in a number of years, whether that still occurs. I think somewhat maybe they film more than what they're airing, so that if you don't take deals, you're not promised of getting on there. I don't know if they still do that, but I think there was a time where maybe that was the case.
And what's the craziest or funniest moment that you've experienced with a Shark Tank investment?
There was some product it was like something you build in the ocean that was a turbine of some sort that was going to generate nuclear power. And it was this PhD guy that, wanted like $1 million. It was this pie in the sky, change the world idea that I don't think worked. And he got laughed out of the room pretty quickly.
I've seen a couple of those. Tell us about how the Sharks and how they interact.
Oh, they're very friendly with each other on and off the set, but they're also competitive because they're competing for those deals. And so that it's interesting to see how they sell themselves. Some of them have, unique selling points. Mark, whether it's with the Mavericks or his personality, Damon in fashion, QVC, what have you, shopping networks that, they're also competing.
Well, and the thing about Mark is he has a real heart for a personal story. When they're family driven, I know one time I remember the Sharks all going together on an investment. The family of a late fireman was selling a special wooden cutting board. It was really emotional, and I guess, was it really spontaneous that they all went in together on that? Because you said they don't really see anything in advance.
Oh yeah, that I wasn't there for that one, but everything is done in real time. And there's no that they don't even get titles of the products or anything. They literally, when those doors open, is the first time they encounter those individuals. They're kept, as a matter of fact, you don't see them off the set either. When they walk out, they go through a separate entrance. There can't be any talking between the Sharks and the parties. And as a matter of fact, if people try to come to me and say, "Hey, I want to get on," I can't send anybody along. It has to be, you can't have previous relationships either.
If your best friend was about to go on Shark Tank, what would you tell him so that he's completely prepared?
I would say have your pitch down, time it, be concise, be specific, know what your ask is, and be willing to take a deal if it's the one you walked in wanting.
Is it a good idea to have a certain shark in mind when you go on the show with your item?
Unless there's a specific tie, if it's a fashion thing for Damon or a sports thing for Mark. Otherwise, I would take the deal.
If you were producing Shark Tank, what might you tweak or change?
Oh, I don't know that I'd change anything. I like the fact, I think it's something they didn't do as much early on, but they do now is, guest sharks. I think that's a nice little twist to have in there.
Change of directions. What's it like to be a member of the MavManiacs, at least on occasion, being one of those great male?
Well, it's not on occasion. It's once. I told him I'm retired.
So
I wrote
you
an article about the Maniacs. I wanted to write about their importance in Mavericks culture and fandom, and I decided to embed myself and actually dance in a routine with them. And they take it very, very seriously. And I put in many, many tens of hours of work, learning the routine. Spent the whole game working and cheering with them, and they are beloved. And it was, as someone who doesn't get nervous when I public speak, you see me speak or go on TV or do anything. I was very nervous performing with them in front of 20,000 people because it was outside my comfort zone, but I'm very glad that I did it. And I believe getting out of your comfort zone helps you grow.
when you spoke just recently at the South Lake Chamber of Commerce, I told Mark Gilbert, the chamber exec, about you being when that you did the dance routine with the Maniacs, and he said, "Oh, I'm a season ticket holder. I missed that night," but he said that is just so cool. So that's great. So, what was your greatest thrill that night?
Um, Probably when it was over with, and then I look over and I see the whole team staring at me and laughing, or I see Patrick Mahomes in the front row with his wife laughing at me, and just knowing that you can bring that kind of joy to the crowd, and people who came up to me for months and months afterwards, really talking about how much they enjoyed it.
So, tell us about being a stand-up comedian. How did you start that?
Well, I did skits in college, and then I started doing improv comedy. If you ever seen Whose Line Is It Anyway, that kind of thing, coming out of college here in Dallas. And then around 2001, I took a class and learned the basics of comedy, how to write a joke really, and how to perform it, and how to come up with material. And it was a creative outlet for me. It was never a full-time job, but it was something that I enjoyed, and it was also kind of getting past those fears and finally finding your voice. And when you get good at it, it's really something.
So, what's your go-to topic?
You have to write about yourself. You can always write about generic things like the traffic or airline travel or things like that, but anybody can do that. You have to write about what I know, whether it's dating or having a Greek family or anything like that. When you make it more personal, it's more relatable.
What do we need to know and appreciate about that stand-up comedian that had the courage to walk up there on the stage and bare himself or herself to the world?
I would say two things. One, it's the purest art form in that you're judged every 10 seconds, whether you get a laugh or not. There's very few things that you get immediate judgment from like that. And the other thing is you do have to learn. It's like a song. There's a rhythm to it. There's a structure to it. A lot of people think, well, I tell funny stories at parties. I'll go up to an open mic and tell a funny story that has a joke at the end of 4 minutes. If you do that on a stand-up stage, you're going to die. You have to have a joke laugh every 5 to 10 seconds, and there's a rhythm and a cadence and a movement to it. So take the time to learn it properly, and that'll pay off.
Tell us about the ebb and flow of a comedy bit. You can't have a home run on every single one. You've got to kind of weave it up and down a little bit, don't you, for the tempo?
Well, it's just like a concert, right? If you go see the Eagles, Don Henley's not singing Desperado off the top. He ends the show with that. That's the hit. You open with a crowd pleaser. It's not your best bit, but it's a really, really good one that you know is going to knock people down and enjoy it. And then you try some new stuff in the middle, and then you ramp up just like you do at a concert, and you see the hits towards the end, and you leave on a high.
What else would you like to share with us today?
Just enjoying the journey. Reach out to me on LinkedIn if you'd like me to speak to your group. I kind of talk about my lessons in tech, media, and sports, and how they prepared me for the career that I have now. And I call it From Wall Street to the Emmys. I won the Emmy Award for the best sports analyst for my work on Mavs TV, and so I love sharing my story. And you've been a great supporter of mine, and I appreciate that.
Well, Brian, thanks for joining us for 15 on Fridays with Fletch. Here you are, the guy who may be the most interesting man in the world. Thanks again, Brian. We appreciate you.
Well, I'm getting gray, so I'm going to look like him soon.